Now, water is on everybody's mind, and the UN is, for only the second time in its history, going to hold a meeting next year on water. And I'm thrilled to say that we have one of the organizers of that meeting, Henk Ovink, who is Special Envoy for Water from the Netherlands, joining us online from New York, very kindly. So I'm hoping that Henk can now appear on screen above us. Henk, hello?
Yes, hello.
Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Splendid. Well, thank you very much for joining us late in your evening in New York. It's very kind of you to stay up. Please go ahead and tell us about the UN Water Conference for 2023.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me virtually join. It's a real pleasure and honor. I'm Henk Ovink, Special Envoy for International Water Affairs for the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And indeed, just landed in New York because this week, important preparatory meetings for this UN 2023 Water Conference. I will get to why water. And I think Professor Oki already explained the importance of water. I tried to start with this image first, the blue marble, the snapshot taken from planet Earth in 1972 by Apollo 17, and it really shows the power of water. 70+% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. And I was pleased that Professor Oki also showed this image, that if you take a big vacuum cleaner and take all the water of the planet, then whatever is left, you can fit within a sphere that's not even the size of the US. But there are 3 bulbs on this image. And the smallest one, the 0.4%, is the fresh water that we can use for human consumption, agriculture, and industry. So water is scarce, and we've seen it in the pandemic. Wash your hands. Well, with 2 billion people across the world lacking access to safe drinking water, 3 billion to hygiene facilities, and 4 billion to sanitation facilities, we know while that human right to water and sanitation and hygiene is there, too many people around the world lack access. And it's not only access to water and health issues that deal with it. We know that climate change hits us hardest through water, being it too much, too little, or polluted. And the devastating impact of that we see every day. Now, going back to NASA, we definitely have a problem that won't be solved by these engineers, white male 50+, like me, because there's a new generation on the horizon that is calling for solutions that are more comprehensive, more inclusive, and that really do justice in many ways. And it's this call of Secretary General Guterres that I really want to relate to when he said, this is a time in the midst of the pandemic for science and solidarity. And science means in the broadest sense, a real understanding, going by facts, by data, showcasing these interdependencies, and providing us with opportunities. But solidarity too. And solidarity also in its broadest sense. This is about accountability. This is not only about reaching out, but also building capacities that are institutional as well as informal. And that makes me focus on water. Why water? Well, former Secretary General Ban Ki-moon always said, water is life. And he was so right, because water is connected to everything we do, everything we live, everything we see, everything we build. But water is really connected to every sustainable development goals in many different ways. Without water, no food. Without water, no energy. With poor water, poor health conditions. With poor water, biodiversity loss, and so forth. This connectivity of water, all these interdependencies make it complex. And therefore, water is always perceived as very technical, in a silo, as a sector. And for that, either taken for granted or not taken into account at all. And that needs to change, because water is at the heart of the many challenges. And I think Professor Oki and others already alluded to that, with floods and droughts occurring all over the world, cities being impacted first, not only with a devastating impact on investments, but with droughts, crippling effects all the way down to the economies of the communities that are hit hardest. So there's a financial, infrastructure, and economic aspect. There's, of course, a equality and justice part, because the most vulnerable are hit hardest and have the hardest time to get back on their feet. A health issue that taps into our social demand. And of course, the environment, climate, but also biodiversity. Our freshwater bodies and our saltwater bodies are in decline with poor pollution. And on top of that, climate change is this big magnifying glass, making every challenge only more challenging. We are at a crucial point in time. There is a disconnect between where we come from and the solutions we provided and where we have to go. A future where those interdependencies in the context of population, economic growth, climate change are only presenting us with more dire challenges. And the solutions from the past do not present us the solutions for that future. But we have that understanding of this complexity thanks to our Sustainable Development Goals, all 17 of them. But the challenge here is that the world likes to single them out. Champion 1 or 2 or 3. But that is impossible. All these 17 goals are interrelated, and you can find water in each and every one of them. And on top of that, the agreement on Sustainable Development Goals, we have a Paris Agreement. That Paris Agreement links water to climate change, both to mitigation, our freshwater bodies, wetlands, oceans, at the same time, wastewater treatment plants, providing us with clean energy and the opportunity to turn waste into a resource, and adaptation, of course, building resiliency and capacity across. But for that, we have to really radically change. Business as usual is not enough. So instead of this non-responsive approach, moving from crisis to crisis, or the reactive approach where we find ourselves currently in a world that is always in a post-disaster state, we have to become radically proactive, embrace that future and see it as an opportunity. And water, again, provides us with that opportunity, if only we dare to understand water's complexity and the relationships across, value water, not only financially, but really economically, socially, culturally, environmentally, across all sectors and silos and across scales, and then manage, build capacity. Those are institutional as well as informal. And that means we have to create time and space to understand those values, to look at the future and be inspired. And that inspiration comes from coalitions that we find across the globe. Now, I would love to talk about the Netherlands and the way how we deal and manage water, but I don't have the time. In the Netherlands, floods and droughts are a current state of mind. There is a governance aspect to that, but that is for another time. But I just want to make sure that history of the Netherlands of living with water is about working together, is about coalition forming. And that is what we bring to the world with our programs and projects, but definitely also our coalitions. Coalitions of the willing that tap into that future as an opportunity. The one we started in the issues of water was the high-level panel on water. We started a global commission on adaptation with the first adaptation summit. And we brought water at the COP in Glasgow with the first ever water pavilion that we're now bringing to Sharm el-Sheikh for the second year in a row. And this global coalition of projects and programs in the different regions that are so vulnerable, we also add to our multilateral level. And it doesn't come from scratch. It's not all of a sudden coming from the sky, this UN 2023 Water Conference. There's a whole range of efforts, not only by the Netherlands, but also by other countries, by pushing hard to have water at the agenda of the UN. And in the current state, it's impossible. If you want to call the UN on water, nobody picks up the phone. Why? Because water is fragmented around the world, perceived as a sector and a silo, but also in the context of the UN, water always touches upon sovereignty issues. And those sovereignty issues make it impossible that there's an institution responsible for water at the UN, neither that there is a political level, a meeting or an agreement. There's UN Water, but that is only a meeting of UN agencies and observers, and there's no political level. And that is why countries around the world, championed by the government of Tajikistan and the Netherlands, said, this is enough. In 1977 was the one and only UN Water Summit in Mar del Plata. Next year will be the second UN Summit on water, the UN 2023 Water Conference. In the midst of the Water Action Decade, we will see a review of that action decade, but look ahead. The conference is based on 3 principles: inclusiveness, action orientation, and cross-sectorality, really tapping into the power of water and how it connects across SDGs. And the outcome of the conference, because there is no agreement nor treaty on water, is a delivery of the proceedings, but also commitments. Commitments that we will bring together as co-host into a water action agenda. An agenda that will focus on commitments by countries, institutional partners within the UN and the finance sector and private sector, NGOs, but also commitments that can come from across the world, from schools, from youth, from indigenous, and beyond. We focus on those solutions that work, that will bring that future of resiliency, justice, and sustainability closer, thanks to working and investing and valuing water. And then we scale what works, we stop what doesn't, and we innovate where it's needed. Next year's conference will have 5 themes, and I'm just landed in New York 2 hours ago, because on Monday and Tuesday we will have 2 preparatory events where we will focus on game-changing solutions, but also decide as member states, as countries from across the world, on the themes of the conference. Those themes are now water for health, water for development, water for climate resiliency and the environment, water for cooperation, and the Water Action Decade, supported by the accelerators of the Global Acceleration Framework, finance, governance, capacity, data, and innovation, and the principles we put forward as a co-host. So this conference is really about actions. We need the commitments of anyone across the world that are bold, transformative, inclusive, replicable, scalable, the real game changers to come forward and bring them to the Water Action Agenda. You can find the Water Action Agenda online and all the information. We need those solutions to be scaled and replicated because we need success. Water is a true lever for sustainable development. And I'll show you one example from a program I set up in Asia. Water as leverage, as a catalyst for sustainable development and resiliency in Asia. A program run in Chennai in India, Khulna, Bangladesh, and Semarang in Indonesia, but I'll only show you the example in Chennai, where we turn the current system of scarcity, where not enough water falls in a lot of water falls in a too short amount of time and is wasted, polluted, and flows into the ocean, is captured with nature-based solutions to prevent pollution, build resiliency and capacity. Current state of the canals is what we turn around with new revitalizing historic tanks, building new ones, revitalize forests and canals, build new biospheres, construct wetlands, and combine liquid and solid waste recycling. Recharging the culture of water in Chennai and replicating that culture across the world. That is what the conference is also about. There is no silver bullet to the issue of water and sustainability, but focusing on too much, too little, and polluted water, and really changing course by commitment next year at the UN conference, we have no time to waste. In the words of Secretary General Guterres, we must step up our efforts now. In the context of future generations, we have no other choice. These girls from Semarang said it, and the little one has future doctor on her cap. And there were 3 reasons why she has it. 1, she wants to go to school and learn. 2nd, she wants to take care and care for people. But 3rd, she believes in a future where it's worthwhile taking care of people. Thank you very much. Join us Monday and Tuesday online. This is the link to the conference website, but more importantly, bring us your commitments, your actions, so we can scale, replicate, and implement them for really changing the world through water. Thank you very much.